Can you really lead a movement if you are afraid to use your own voice?
What a very important question. Speaking one's truth and leading, they're synonymous in a sense. It's important we share our beliefs and our ideas to lead, to inspire, but a good portion of that is listening. Speaking isn't always being the loudest person in the room necessarily or having the right words all the time. Sometimes leadership is listening to help not only understand others, but that's in a sense where you can actually motivate and encourage people as a leader.
So are you saying, Shelley, that sometimes the best part about being a powerful speaker is not to say anything at all?
Absolutely. Counterintuitive, right?
Tell us more about that, because I think that's where we exactly want to live here on the show today. Is we think we're doing a show on talking, and now we are doing a show on listening. Why does this matter so much right now?
Well, specificity is brevity. The consolidation or economy of words is really in effect where you can have the most power. So sometimes to get to that brevity, to get to that important statement or belief is doing a lot of research. And by that, it's being curious, asking questions of others, as well as things that you're doing to get more information, to distill it down to an effective message. This is the essence of what I want to say.
So as the architect and founder of Remarkable Speaking, you work with a lot of speakers or leaders. Why do people come to you? What do they hope to accomplish?
Well, leaders come to me because they're very powerful, successful people. They've built companies. They're leading Fortune 100, 500 companies. They have tremendous power and a big audience. But there's a disconnect between what they've built and getting out there and articulating that vision and speaking to people. How does that come together? And I have sort of found a niche working with people of that ilk, because I'm not just going to be another person to tell them to smile more or improve your hand gestures. I really get to the essence of what is holding you back, what is preventing you from crossing that line. So in articulating that vision, it's there, and I might be telling you something you don't want to hear or no one else has told you. But that's another challenge for people that build their whole lives around risks and challenges.
Why is it so difficult for us to put our own vision into words? Should that not be really comfortable? Like if somebody says, what do you want? What's your vision? Should I not be able to say that? What is it that's so difficult about that?
Not taking a few seconds, when I say seconds, in 30 seconds to think about what is my big idea here? What do I want to share with people? What do I want my audience to know right now? And taking 30 seconds to articulate that statement, that is all you need to do before you walk into a room. What do I want everybody to know today? And instead, we show up. The difficult thing is we think it has to be a big explanation. And believe me, I'm a storyteller. I think stories are a really important part of this. But you don't want to come out of the gate with so much detail, with so much information that people are swimming and drowning in details and not knowing really why they're here. The framework I have developed is a 4-minute tool that takes you through coming up with, speaking out loud, those ideas in a 4-minute drill. When you speak using speaking prompts, here's what I want my audience to know today. It comes right to the surface, and the less time you have to speak about it, the faster you realize that vision, because it's really in there. We just can't articulate it because we're judging ourselves as we're speaking. I work with clients all the time. Before they know it, in 30 seconds, they could say exactly what they feel, exactly what they mean, and that leads to a greater conversation.
Let's talk about your framework. Take us through it.
The Remarkable framework is a 10-part system that helps you consolidate your speaking. And I based it on a book I read years ago called Sprint, which is about, a lot of companies use this to fast track to prototyping in businesses. And through some cohorts I was teaching a while ago, I thought, well, what if I adapted that idea of short sprints to people speaking? Because when people were In a coaching session, I would ask them, give me your elevator pitch. 4 minutes, 5 minutes, they're rambling and rambling and rambling because the brain is trying to process and do all of this thinking and critical understanding live. And the brain can't edit that quickly. So we tried it. I applied the sprint technique. Why am I sharing this with you today? And leading into meetings, leading conferences, leading podcasts, leading any conversation that way gives people a starting point. You set an expectation. They know what's going to happen. And it's that rapid fire timing, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 30 seconds that gets you there.
So in your framework, the technique is to help the client or the reader of the book to go through these short sprints to help them identify what it actually is that they want to articulate, what they want to say.
That's exactly right. Because if you think of your subconscious, it's where all your memories are stored, your experiences, so many things about your life. And if you're really thinking very hard with the prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain, again, it's hard to process and find without judgment and all the other things interfering. So yes, the framework forces you to reduce time. It's when you have more time, you procrastinate. This forces you to get to the point faster without judgment. Boom. And that's exactly the way it happens. Yes, in seconds, you can access that idea deep in your subconscious. And you're like, wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. That's incredible.
You talk about a phenomenon of the perfect leader and why this is really hurting real people. In this TED style delivery, Steve Jobs, that when we see these perfect leaders, why should we not look at things like that when we speak? Or should we?
Well, we all have a different idea of who's a perfect speaker. And I'd have to refrain from that word perfect because I think it's an unfair label. We're human. Humans are far from perfect, but it's what we like, who we admire, who has inspired us, who has moved us through time. You remember a school teacher from grade school that did something or noticed a skill in you and encouraged you to play a sport or an instrument. Those are the moments we remember. That's what molds and shapes us. And those become the mentors and the great speakers that we quote and think about throughout our lives, as well as leaders that seem to inspire us by what they feel, by encouraging us to create our own version of that.
So I need to ask this. It's like, what was this trigger moment for you where you said, I'm going to have to help people to do this? Was there had to be some sort of an event where you go like, I have to fix it. I have to help people fix this. What was it?
I was always terrified of speaking because when I was in a college production and I blanked out and it terrified me and traumatized me that I stayed behind the scenes. I stayed silent for years. And it wasn't until decades later, much older as an adult, that I was forced into a speaking situation. A keynote didn't show up and I was asked to step in their place. Nervous, heavy.
On the spot?
Like that. No rehearsal, no notes. My knees were knocking so hard.
Huh?
I mean, it was terrifying.
That's literally terrifying. Yes.
It is. It was. I still think about it and I get nervous. But because there was so much happening, and you can imagine what was going on in my head at the time, my eyes met with a person in the audience who just smiled back, like as if they couldn't wait to hear what I had to say. And I realized, oh, I'll speak to this person. And it was the reaction of the audience that settled my nerves. They were there to hear me. They were excited to hear what I had to say. They had no idea I wasn't supposed to be the speaker. They had no idea I wasn't prepared. But was I? Yes, I've been working on this project for months. I had plenty to say about it. So it was very unscripted, but that was part of the beautiful thing about it. And I realized there's something here. I became more of a speaker. I became more engaged and things started changing in my life. And I realized, wow, if I could help others with this idea, they wouldn't be wasting or spending so much time in the fear zone and using that energy in the I'm excited, this is life-changing zone.
So what I'm hearing you say is that this was almost like your first experience of authenticity and presence and this purpose-driven voice, because you
Oh, yeah.
had to, like, in this moment, come up with something.
And that goes down to the restriction of time in the sprint. When you have more time to think, we tend to procrastinate longer. When there's less time, it actually forces you to get focused. And I happen to, in connecting with this person in the audience, everything else melted away. And I just became focused on the one purpose why I was there. I had to share information. That's the difference.
Well, you do say that the story is the legacy. Tell us what that means.
Your stories, your memories, your moments, things you've experienced are unique to you. That's what our legacy is about. That's who we are. And it's unique to everybody. And it's not something to be judged on a grander or larger scale. This is how I saw something. And when you're a leader, this isn't something you manufacture. This is life's experience. People want to hear those stories. You mentioned Steve Jobs. We connected so much with him because he was honest in his experiences and his journey of what he went through, what he thought, what he experienced. He wasn't telling people what to do. He was explaining what happened through his journey. That is his legacy. Each one of us has that experience that's unique to us that creates our version, our legacy, our experience of that particular moment.
Do you have any last words for our audience before we say goodbye for today?
Absolutely. I think in the business world today, where time is valuable, it's a valuable commodity, and brevity is actually profitability. Use a tool, a framework to help you achieve that specificity and be the speaker you want to hear.
Great news. The conversation continues. When you subscribe, like, and ring the bell, you'll know when a new episode has released. As always, speak remarkably.